The sleek bus hummed, carrying me closer to the familiar embrace of Raytown's Main Street. A sigh of pure relief escaped my lips. 2 months away from my beloved daughter, Prudence, and her bustling family felt like an eternity. At 67, all I craved was the soothing familiarity of my own home, my bed, my quiet kitchen. "Here we are, ma'am," the driver's voice cut through my thoughts, a gentle hum in the rearview mirror. I rose slowly, my knees protesting the 5-hour journey, a stark reminder of time's relentless march. From the overhead rack, I carefully retrieved my small, wheeled suitcase. A backpack would have sufficed in my younger days, but now, practicality trumped pride. Raytown remained largely untouched by my absence. The same quaint houses lined Main Street, the familiar hum of Good Food Supermarket, on the corner, where Tuesday's senior discount day usually found me. The dusty park, a haven for mothers and their children, still stood, though a fleeting thought pricked at me. It had been a while since I'd spotted my sister-in-law, Doreen, or my granddaughter, Lily, among them. The taxi whisked me to my modest yet cherished home on Alder Street, a place my late husband, George, had purchased 35 years ago when our children were mere toddlers. "It's an investment, Evelyn, for the future," he'd said, always one step ahead. He would have approved of how I'd managed our finances since his passing. A cool, slightly dusty air greeted me as I unlocked the front door. I pushed open the windows, inviting the soft May breeze inside. 2 messages blinked on the answering machine. The first, from Monica at the book club, an invitation to next Wednesday's meeting. The second, from the bank, a routine confirmation that the monthly payment for my son's mortgage had successfully gone through. These payments had been an integral, unspoken part of my life for the past 5 years, ever since Michael, my son, had lost his lucrative position at a regional insurance firm and settled for a local appraiser's job, earning half his previous salary. Their relocation to Raytown had been born of necessity. "It's temporary, Mom, just until I get back on my feet," Michael had promised. Freshly widowed, adrift in a house that felt too vast, the thought of my son's family close by had seemed a comforting anchor. I'd helped with their down payment, and now, almost 2/3 of their monthly mortgage fell to me. Michael always insisted it was a loan, one he'd surely repay. I didn't need the money. George's pension, our investments, and his life insurance had secured my comfortable retirement. I was simply grateful for the chance to help. After unpacking my suitcase and indulging in a long, hot shower, I decided against postponing my visit to Michael's house. Though we'd spoken regularly during my trip, I yearned to see Olivia, my 6-year-old granddaughter. Olivia was a quiet, thoughtful child, a stark contrast to Doreen's boisterous, energetic children from her first marriage, Ethan, 14, and Chloe, 12. Michael's house, a mere 10-minute walk from mine, was a modest but charming 2-story home with a small garden. Yet, a disquieting sight met my eyes. The lawn was unkempt, and the flower beds near the entrance were choked with weeds. Michael, once so proud of his garden, used to spend every weekend tending to it. I knocked, the sound echoing in the stillness, though the blare of a game show from inside told me someone was home. Doreen opened the door, her smile momentarily freezing before stretching wide. "Evelyn. What a surprise. We weren't expecting you today." She quickly smoothed her hair and tugged at her faded homemade t-shirt. "I decided not to warn you," I replied, returning her smile. "I got back a couple of hours ago and just wanted to see everyone." "Oh, sure. Come on in." Doreen stepped aside. "The kids will be thrilled to see you. Ethan. Chloe. Grandma Evelyn's here." I noted the conspicuous absence of Olivia's name in her excited pronouncement. The living room was a whirlwind of disarray, couch cushions askew, empty chip bags and soda cans littering the coffee table. The television blared so loudly that conversations would be a strenuous endeavor. Ethan, a lanky teenager, headphones dangling around his neck, grudgingly tore himself away from his tablet. "Hi, Grandma," he mumbled, barely glancing at me before his eyes were glued back to his screen. Chloe burst in from the kitchen, chewing on something. "Grandma," she shrieked, launching herself into my arms. "Did you bring anything back from your trip?" A typical question, one I'd grown accustomed to from Doreen's children, who often viewed me as a walking gift shop. Of course, darling, I chuckled, stroking her hair. My bag's at home, but I'll bring some goodies next time. Where's Olivia? She's upstairs, doing homework, Doreen answered quickly, finally lowering the TV volume. Michael's still at work, should be back in an hour. Would you like some tea? I nodded, following her into the kitchen, a space that felt subtly altered. A new, expensive coffee maker gleamed, and a high-tech microwave sat on the counter. Not that I was scrutinizing my son's finances, but these purchases seemed beyond their usual budget. How are Prudence and her family doing? Doreen asked, putting the kettle on. And how was New Haven? Prudence is well, busy with her gallery, and New Haven is pleasant, though a bit noisy for my tastes, I replied, taking a seat at the table. How's Olivia doing at school? Doreen's face tightened almost imperceptibly. Fine, she shrugged. The teacher says she's too quiet, doesn't socialize much with the other kids. We're thinking of getting her in to see a child psychologist. Maybe she just needs a little more attention at home, I suggested cautiously. We give her plenty of attention, Evelyn, Doreen retorted, her voice cool. But we have 3 children, and Olivia isn't the only one who needs attention. Ethan's going through a difficult adolescence, and Chloe has a swimming competition in 2 weeks. I noticed how Doreen consistently drew a distinction between her children and Olivia. Of course, I understand, I nodded, deciding not to press the issue. How's Michael doing at work? Better, Doreen said, placing a cup of tea in front of me. He's been promoted to senior appraiser. His salary hasn't changed much yet, but he says he'll get a substantial raise by the end of the year. I'd heard that phrase countless times, by the end of the year, soon, about to. Meanwhile, my money continued to flow towards their mortgage. That's great, I sipped my tea. Can I go up and say hi to Olivia? You don't want her distracted from her lessons, Doreen said quickly. She got a bad grade in math recently, so she's making up for it now. Better wait until after dinner, she'll be downstairs. Something in her tone made me wary. Olivia was typically a straight-A student, and since when couldn't a 6-year-old interrupt her studies for 5 minutes to greet her grandmother? We moved back to the living room, where Doreen began fussily tidying scattered belongings. Sorry about the mess. The kids were especially active today. She laughed nervously. Ethan, get your headphones off the table. The teenager rolled his eyes but complied. My gaze drifted to the new pictures on the shelf, Doreen and the kids at some resort, Ethan with a brand new bike, Chloe in a swimsuit with her medals. Michael and Doreen stood beaming in front of a yacht. Beautiful pictures, I remarked. When did you get to vacation on the coast? Oh, that was in March, spring break, Doreen looked slightly embarrassed. It was just a 4-day trip, and it was a hot deal. I nodded, feigning no surprise. In March, Michael had called me, asking for an additional $2,000 to fix their roof. Apparently, roof repair was now a euphemism for hot trip to the coast. Where are the pictures of Olivia? I asked, noticing her absence from every photo. She was staying with my mom, Doreen answered hastily. She was just coming down with a cold. We didn't want to take any chances. Or didn't want to spend money on another ticket, I thought, but held my tongue. Just then, quiet footsteps sounded from upstairs, and a small figure appeared on the landing. Olivia, in a simple t-shirt and jeans, descended cautiously, clinging to the railing. Grandma, her eyes widened upon seeing me. Olivia. I told you not to come down until you were done with your lessons. Doreen's voice was sharp. The girl froze on the last step, her thin shoulders tensing. I quickly rose and approached my granddaughter. Come here, sweetheart, I've missed you so much. Olivia rushed into my arms, her small body trembling. I hugged her tighter. You've grown, I smiled, pulling back slightly to get a better look. And you've grown your hair. Olivia smiled shyly, tugging at her blonde braid. How long are you staying, Grandma? I'm back for good, sweetheart. We'll see each other often now. Olivia, you really need to finish your homework, Doreen interjected, giving me an apologetic look. I'm sorry, Evelyn, but she has a test tomorrow. I'm almost done, Mom, Olivia said quietly. Almost doesn't mean done, Doreen cut her off. Upstairs, now. I noticed the immediate shift in my granddaughter's face, as if a mask had dropped, erasing the fleeting joy. She nodded obediently and turned towards the stairs. I'll be with you in a minute, I called after her. Doreen's lips tightened in frustration, but she said nothing. I'll help her with her math, I explained with a smile. I am an ex-accountant, after all. As you wish, Doreen shrugged. I'm going to go make dinner. Will you stay, if you don't mind? When my sister-in-law disappeared into the kitchen, I ascended the stairs to the second floor. Olivia's room was at the far end of the hallway, the smallest in the house, just as I remembered. I knocked softly. Come in, a quiet voice replied. Olivia sat at a tiny desk, bent over a notebook. The room itself was starkly minimalist, a narrow bed, a small closet, a single shelf of books. No posters, minimal toys, a stark contrast to Ethan's and Chloe's rooms, which overflowed with gadgets and vibrant posters. Show me your math, I said, sitting beside her. Olivia slid the notebook over to me. Simple first-grade addition and subtraction problems. Everything was correct. There are no mistakes here, I said. You're doing great. I know, she replied quietly. But Mom always double-checks. I studied my granddaughter's thin face. She had grown even paler in 2 months, with faint shadows under her eyes, not a condition one would expect to see in a vibrant 6-year-old. How's school going, little girl? I stroked her head. Fine, she shrugged. The teacher says I'm reading well. And your friends? Olivia was silent for a moment. Not very many, she finally admitted. But there's Sophia. We sit at the same desk. She's kind. That's good, I smiled. And at home, how do you get along with Ethan and Chloe? Her face instantly shut down. It's fine, she lowered her eyes. They're older. They have their own things to do. Something told me, their own thing, didn't fully explain the tension I was sensing. You know, I brought you something, I said, pulling a small box from my pocket. Open it. Inside lay a delicate silver pendant in the shape of a crescent moon, with a tiny star nestled within. It was nothing extravagant, but I watched Olivia's eyes light up. Is it for me? She asked, incredulously. For you, I fastened the chain around her neck. It's a charm. When you're sad or scared, you can touch it and remember that your grandma is always with you. Olivia threw her arms around me, and I felt her trembling. Thank you, she whispered. We sat together for another half hour. I told her about my trip, about a dinosaur museum I'd visited, meticulously describing it for her. Olivia listened wide-eyed, absorbing every word. It seemed to me she was coming alive, transforming back into the inquisitive girl I remembered. Downstairs, the front door slammed shut. Michael had returned. I heard my son's loud voice greeting Doreen, then the thud of stomping feet. Ethan and Chloe, apparently, had come down to greet their father. Let's go downstairs, I took Olivia's hand. Your daddy's back. In the living room, the atmosphere had shifted. Michael, still in his work clothes, was sprawled in a chair, while Ethan showed him something on a tablet. Chloe hovered nearby, flaunting her new headphones. Doreen stood in the kitchen doorway, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. Mom. Michael rose when he saw me. What a surprise. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? He hugged me, and I caught a whiff of expensive cologne, another unexpected expense for a man who claimed to be barely making ends meet. I thought I'd surprise you, I smiled. How's work? Better and better, he said cheerfully. I'm expecting a promotion in a couple of months, so we'll soon be able to discuss a return on your investment in our house. Investment, he called it now, not a bailout, not a loan, but an investment, as if I were counting on a monetary return. Take your time, I shook my head. Get on your feet first. Oh, I'm almost there, he winked. Doreen, is dinner ready? I'm starving. In 10 minutes, darling. Doreen disappeared back into the kitchen. I noticed that Olivia had remained glued to my side, holding my hand tightly. Michael hadn't even acknowledged his daughter. Daddy, look what my grandma gave me. Olivia timidly showed him the pendant. Michael glanced at it. That's a nice little trinket. He turned back to Ethan. So, what's up with your new level in the game? Olivia's shoulders slumped. A sharp pang of pain pierced me on her behalf. My son had always been a little self-centered, but I hadn't expected such blatant neglect. At dinner, I observed the family dynamics. Michael and Doreen animatedly discussed their upcoming vacation. Ethan and Chloe interrupted each other, talking about school and friends. Olivia ate in silence, her eyes fixed on her plate. No one addressed her, no one asked her questions. It was as if she were a ghost at the table. How are you doing at school, Olivia? I asked when there was a lull in the conversation. It was as if everyone suddenly remembered she existed. She's having trouble with math, Michael answered in his daughter's place. Her teacher says she needs to study more. But I checked her assignments, and they're all correct, I countered. So she's finally getting smart, Doreen snorted. Last week, she got an F. It wasn't an F, it was a B, Olivia said quietly. Just one mistake. Don't cross your mother, Michael interrupted her. I noticed Chloe and Ethan exchange smirks. Something was definitely amiss in this family, and my granddaughter was at the heart of the problem. After dinner, Michael offered me a brandy. We sat in the living room while Doreen put the children to bed. How are you really doing, Mom? My son asked. Aren't you lonely in this big house? I'm used to it, I shrugged. I have a book club, gardening, and sometimes I help out at the local library. You could sell the house and move into a smaller apartment, Michael said casually. Or even move in with us. We have a guest room. I looked at my son carefully. There was clearly a financial interest behind the offer. I like my house, I said firmly. There are too many memories of your father to sell it. Michael pressed his lips together. Of course, I realized that. I just thought it might be easier for you. It's not hard enough for me, I sipped my cognac. By the way, I noticed you got some new things, a coffee maker, a microwave. And Doreen mentioned a vacation to the coast. Michael hesitated for a moment. Yeah, things have picked up. Bonus at work, you know. And Doreen got a pay raise. I nodded, deciding not to mention the March roof repair. That's good. So soon, you'll really be able to manage without my help? Of course, Mom, he smiled broadly. It won't be long now. Just as I was about to leave, a small figure in pajamas appeared on the stairs. Olivia came down and gave me a big hug. Come back tomorrow, Grandma, she whispered. I will, sweetheart. I kissed her forehead. Doreen emerged from the kitchen and looked at her daughter sternly. Olivia, you should be in bed. Go upstairs. The girl gave me one last glance and hurried away. On the way home, I thought about what I had seen. The beautiful facade of a prosperous family concealed something unpleasant. My son and his wife were living beyond their means, spending my money on their whims, and my granddaughter. Something was categorically wrong with the way they treated Olivia at home. I sat in the chair by the window, where George usually sat when contemplating important matters. What would you do, dear? I mentally asked. The answer came immediately, as if he were right next to me. What's right, Evelyn? You always know what's right. I decided to observe a little longer before jumping to conclusions, but my intuition told me that the situation was far more serious than it seemed at first glance. And if my suspicions were confirmed, would have to make some tough decisions. It had been a week since my return to Raytown. I'd visited my son's family twice in that time, each visit revealing small but disturbing details. Olivia was perpetually busy with chores, dusting, folding laundry, washing dishes. For a 6-year-old, this seemed profoundly odd. My own children, at that age, had minimal responsibilities, making their beds, putting away toys, and not always successfully. Ethan and Chloe, on the other hand, enjoyed their free time, immersed in video games or socializing with friends. Their rooms could remain in disarray for days, and no one reprimanded them. It bothered me, but I didn't interfere. Every family, after all, makes its own rules. That morning, I decided to stop by unannounced. Doreen usually worked on Saturdays, and I hoped to spend time with Olivia without her intrusive supervision. I'd bought a new book about dinosaurs, my granddaughter had an inexplicable passion for them, and a box of chocolates, which Michael adored. The day was clear and sunny, as late May in Raytown often was. As I approached my son's house, I heard loud voices. The windows were open, likely due to the warmth. I slowed my pace, not wanting to intrude on a family quarrel. "I told you to clean this place up this morning." Michael's voice sounded unusually harsh. "Look at this mess." "I tried, Dad, but Ethan spilled the juice, and I had to mop the floor first." Olivia's quiet voice trembled. "I'm not interested in your excuses. Clean up the kitchen, now." I stopped at the open kitchen window, unwittingly witnessing the scene inside. Michael hovered over Olivia, his face red with anger. My granddaughter's petite figure recoiled, shoulders slumped, head drawn in. The kitchen table was indeed a mess, scattered cereal, empty glasses, crumbs, nothing that merited such a tone. Ethan and Chloe stood in the doorway, watching with undisguised amusement. "Look, she's going to cry." Chloe giggled, nudging her brother with her elbow. "She always does." Ethan rolled his eyes. "The little crybaby." Michael didn't even turn to admonish them. Instead, he grabbed a rag and shoved it into Olivia's hands. "I want this place clean in 10 minutes, or no cartoons for a week." Olivia nodded, her little fingers clutching the rag. I noticed she was biting her lip, a sure sign she was holding back tears. Something within me shuddered. This man, yelling at a defenseless child, was not the son I had raised. George had never raised his voice to our children, even when they truly deserved to be punished. I walked determinedly toward the front door and knocked. Ethan opened it, his face instantly changing when he saw me. "Grandma's here," he shouted over his shoulder, and I could hear the warning in his voice. Michael appeared in the hallway, instantly transformed. The anger had vanished from his face, replaced by a welcoming smile. "Mom. What a surprise. Come in, we were just about to have breakfast." I stepped inside, looking around. The living room was relatively tidy, but I could see the signs of hasty cleanup, cushions unevenly arranged, magazines sloppily stacked. "I brought something for Olivia," I said, picking up the book bag. "Where is she?" "In the kitchen, helping clean up," Michael answered casually. "You know, we're teaching her responsibility. Kids need to understand that everyone in the house has responsibilities." "What are Ethan's and Chloe's responsibilities?" I asked, heading for the kitchen. Michael hesitated. "They have, other things, studying, after-school activities. Olivia's still young, so it's good for her to help around the house." I remained silent as I entered the kitchen. Olivia was standing on a small stool, just tall enough to reach the countertop, diligently wiping it down. When she saw me, she froze, a mixture of joy and worry on her face. "Grandma." She jumped off the stool and rushed to me. I hugged her, feeling her skinny body trembling. She smelled of soapy water and something else, a fear, an understanding that suddenly pierced me. "I brought you a new book, Sunshine." I pulled it from the bag. "It's about dinosaurs, just the way you like it." Olivia's eyes widened, and she took the book carefully, as if it were something fragile and precious. "Thank you, Grandma," she whispered. "Olivia, you haven't finished cleaning up," Michael reminded me, entering the kitchen. I straightened, looking at my son intently. I think she's done enough already. Why don't Ethan or Chloe finish up? Michael frowned. Mom, we decide how to divide up the chores in our house. Yeah, I crossed my arms over my chest. Then explain to me why a 6-year-old is cleaning the kitchen while teenagers are slacking off, and why you're yelling at her so loud you can hear her in the street. Michael's face froze. Olivia stepped back, clutching the book to her chest. Olivia, go to your room, Michael said without taking his eyes off me. My granddaughter looked at me uncertainly, and I nodded. Go on, sweetie. I'll be up to see you a little later. When the little footsteps died down the stairs, Michael took a deep breath. Mom, I don't see what the problem is. Children are supposed to help around the house. You're the one who taught us to be orderly. I trained you to be orderly, not to be servants. I argued. And I never yelled at you the way you yelled at Olivia, even when you really deserved to be punished. You're exaggerating, Michael waved his hand irritably. It was just a raised tone. I heard everything, Michael, and I saw Ethan and Chloe laughing at her. Why would you let that happen? My son turned away, opening the refrigerator and pulling out a bag of orange juice. His movements were tense. Kids are always making fun of each other. It's normal. It's not teasing, it's bullying. I wouldn't back down. And you're encouraging it by your inaction. Michael set the glass on the table with a clatter. Mom, I appreciate your concern, but don't interfere with the way we raise our children. We have our own system. A system? I couldn't help the bitterness in my voice. Olivia lives like Cinderella, while her half-brother and sister live like prince and princess. That's your system? You're being dramatic, he rolled his eyes, and in that gesture, I recognized Ethan's teenage mannerism. Olivia just helps out around the house a little, and it's good for her. I opened my mouth to object, but that's when Chloe walked into the kitchen. Dad, Ethan and I are going to the mall. You promised to give us money for new sneakers. Michael immediately changed his tone, his voice soft. Sure thing, princess. Take my wallet and my jacket. There should be enough in there. Chloe ran up to her father and pecked him on the cheek, then ran out of the kitchen. I heard her yell to her brother. He said yes. Interesting, I remarked. For some kids, you have money for sneakers, but for others, you don't even buy normal clothes? Michael turned sharply toward me. Stop it, Mom. You don't know the whole situation. Olivia gets everything she needs. Necessities, yes. What about attention, love, equal treatment? Doreen's kids, they just need more attention now. It's a difficult age, transition. Olivia's easier, he shrugged. She's quiet. She's calm because she's intimidated. I shook my head. Can't you see what's going on in your own house? At that moment, Ethan walked into the kitchen, already dressed to go out, with his new smartphone in his hand. Dad, we're going out. We'll be back for dinner, okay? Just don't spend all the money on stupid stuff, Michael smiled at him. And keep an eye on your sister. Sure, Ethan didn't even look in my direction as he left the kitchen. Isn't Olivia coming with you? I asked, even though I knew the answer. Why? Michael was genuinely surprised. She'd be bored there. Maybe she wants new things too, or just to spend time with her family. Michael sighed with obvious irritation. Mom, stop it. Olivia will have a great time at home with a new book. She doesn't like noisy places at all. I doubted anyone was asking her opinion, but I decided to change tactics. Speaking of money, did you mention that things are going well at work? Yes, Michael nodded, clearly happy to change the subject. I'm hoping for a promotion by the end of the summer. That's great, I smiled. So you'll soon be able to get by without my help with the mortgage? My son's smile faded. Well, not right away. The raise will be phased in. I see, I nodded. Are new sneakers, smartphones, vacations to the coast all part of that phased process? Michael turned purple. Are you keeping track of my spending? No, just watching. And what I see, I don't like. Michael, you use my money to spoil your wife's children while you keep your own daughter as a servant. That's not true, he raised his voice. I love all my children equally. Then why haven't I ever seen you hug Olivia, kissed her, asked her how she was doing in school? But you call Chloe, princess, and give her money when she asks for it. Michael looked away, his shoulders tense. You don't understand. Doreen is very sensitive about how I treat her children. It's been hard on them since the divorce, especially Ethan. His father's barely involved in their lives. What about Olivia? She's having a hard time too. She feels like she doesn't belong in her own family. That's absurd. Michael waved his hand. Olivia is perfectly fine. And she's just a quiet child. At that moment, the front door opened, and I heard Doreen's voice. I'm home. I managed to leave early. She appeared in the kitchen, still in her work clothes, a strict blouse and skirt. Her face changed when she saw me. Evelyn, I didn't know you were coming today. It's a spontaneous visit, I replied. I wanted to spend time with my granddaughter. Doreen smiled, but her eyes remained cold. That's nice. Olivia will be pleased. She's always asking about you. She does? I didn't hide my surprise. I didn't think she was much interested in her opinion in this house. There was a tense silence. Doreen looked at Michael, who shook his head slightly. Was something wrong? She asked cautiously. Mom thinks we're mistreating Olivia, Michael said sharply. Doreen's face changed instantly, her eyebrows went up, her mouth dropped open in feigned shock. What? This is a misunderstanding. We love Olivia. She's our child. Then why is she doing chores while the other kids are having fun? I asked bluntly. Doreen fixed her hair, a gesture I'd noticed she made when she was nervous. Evelyn, you're misunderstanding the situation. We're just getting her accustomed to order. Ethan and Chloe are helping too. They just have more classes and activities after school. Like going to the mall for new sneakers? I raised an eyebrow. Doreen cast a quick glance at Michael. That had been planned for a long time. Chloe has outgrown her sneakers, and Ethan has a competition coming up. Does Olivia have new shoes too, or new books, toys, gadgets? She has everything she needs, Doreen said firmly. We don't spoil the kids. Except for Ethan and Chloe, I didn't back down. I just saw Michael give them money for entertainment while Olivia was made to clean the kitchen. Doreen walked over to her husband and put her hand on his shoulder, a united front against me. Evelyn, we respect you, but parenting is our responsibility. We have our own system, and it works. Olivia is a happy, healthy child. Are you sure? I looked her straight in the eye. When was the last time you asked her if she was happy? Doreen couldn't bear my gaze, turning away to the stove. I think we all need to calm down, she said softly. Let's have some tea. Michael, darling, could you get Olivia? I'm sure she wants to show Grandma her new drawings. The falseness in her voice was almost palpable. She was trying to gloss over the conflict, create the illusion of normalcy. I'd seen this behavior in my clients when I worked as an accountant, people trying to hide financial fraud behind a friendly facade. I'll go up there myself, I said, heading toward the kitchen. Mom. Michael grabbed my hand. Let's not make a big deal out of this. We're doing fine with parenting. I pulled my hand free. I see how you're doing it, and I don't like it. As I climbed the stairs, I heard muffled voices from the kitchen. Doreen was whispering something fiercely to Michael. I knocked on the door of Olivia's room. Come in, her quiet voice sounded wary. Olivia was sitting on the bed, leafing through her new book. Her fingers gingerly touched the colored illustrations, as if afraid of damaging them. Do you like the book, sweetheart? I sat down next to her. Very much, she nodded. Especially the Triceratops. He has such cool horns. I smiled, stroking her head. Olivia, I want you to know that you can always tell me if something's wrong, if something is bothering you or upsetting you. She looked up at me with a flash of fear in her eyes. It's okay, Grandma, isn't it? I took her hand. I think you're having a hard time. I saw Daddy yelling at you today. Olivia put her head down. I just didn't have time to clean up. I tried to, but Ethan spilled the juice and said it was my fault. And you had to clean up after him? She nodded, still not looking up. Does that happen a lot? They make you clean up, and they don't help? Olivia was quiet for a moment, then answered very quietly. Mom says I have to be helpful because I live in their house. Something snapped inside me. Olivia, this is your house. You're not a guest here, and you don't have to earn your place in the family. Her little shoulders shook. I hugged her, and she snuggled up to me. Ethan and Chloe say I'm not a real sister, she whispered. That no one wants me. That's not true. I hugged her tighter. You're very much needed. I do, and your parents need you. At that moment, the door opened, and Doreen appeared with a strained smile. There you are. I made hot chocolate. Olivia, come down to the kitchen. I felt my granddaughter tense in my arms. We're going to sit here a little longer, I said calmly. We're looking at a book about dinosaurs. But the chocolate will get cold. Doreen insisted, her smile becoming even more fake. Bring it here, if it's not too much trouble, I smiled back. We're more comfortable here. Doreen clearly wanted to object but held back. All right, but don't stay too long. Olivia has another reading class today. After she left, I turned to my granddaughter. What reading class? Mommy gives me syllable books, Olivia explained. I have to read 20 pages every day. But you're already a good reader. I wondered. Yes, but Mom says I have to be the best in the class, she shrugged. Otherwise, I'll embarrass the family. That was the last straw. A 6-year-old should not be afraid of embarrassing the family because of syllable reading. He shouldn't feel like a servant in his own home. Shouldn't have to think that no one needs him. We spent another hour with Olivia, looking at the book and talking about dinosaurs. She gradually relaxed, even smiling and laughing. When I was about to leave, she gave me a big hug. Come back tomorrow, Grandma, she said. I will, sweetheart. And you know what? How about you come and visit me for the whole day? We could bake cookies and watch cartoons. Her eyes lit up, but then they went blank. Mom won't let me. I have homework and chores. Leave that to me, I winked at her. It'll be fine. As I walked down the stairs, I found Michael and Doreen in the living room. They were arguing quietly about something, but they stopped talking when they saw me. I'm leaving, I said. But I have a proposition. I'd like to take Olivia with me all day tomorrow. Doreen opened her mouth to object, but Michael beat her to it. Of course, Mom, it's a good idea. It's been a long time since you've spent time together. I realized he just wanted to avoid further conflict, but that was fine with me. Great. I'll pick her up at 9 in the morning. On the drive home, I thought about everything I'd seen and heard. The situation was worse than I'd realized. My son and his wife had created a toxic environment where Olivia was rejected, humiliated, and used. They spent my money on entertainment for Doreen's children, while my granddaughter did not receive even basic attention and care. George always said, money is a tool, Evelyn. It can create or destroy. Now my money was supporting a system that was destroying a child's psyche. At home, I sat down at the table and pulled out a folder of financial documents, an agreement with the bank to co-pay my son's mortgage, statements from my account showing regular transfers, the title deeds to the house. There was a time for compromise and soft talk, but that time had passed. I couldn't let this attitude towards Olivia continue. If financial support was the only leverage I had over my son, then I would use it. The day I spent with Olivia only strengthened my resolve. She was transformed by being away from her family, laughing, chatting away, running around my garden, shouting excitedly. I didn't recognize this cheerful girl as the quiet, frightened child from Michael's house. We baked chocolate chip cookies, watched dinosaur cartoons, and made paper crafts. I pulled out an old photo album and showed her pictures of Michael as a baby. Olivia stared in amazement at the smiling boy building sandcastles and riding his bike. "Is that really my daddy?" she asked, touching the pictures incredulously. "Yes, sweetie. He was a very cheerful and kind boy. Now he gets angry a lot," she said quietly, and that simple statement of fact broke my heart. When it was time to go back, her face immediately darkened. She gathered up her new books and crafts and folded them neatly into her backpack. At the door of Michael's house, she gave me a big hug. "Thank you, Grandma. It was the best day ever." Doreen greeted us with a strange smile, hurriedly taking Olivia upstairs to change after the walk. Michael wasn't home, working on his day off, as his sister-in-law explained. Back in my room, I dialed Harrison Thatcher's number. George and I had been friends with the Thatcher family for over 30 years. Harrison had been our family's attorney, helping with transactions, insurance, taxes. After George died, he handled all the legal aspects of the estate. Evelyn. What a pleasant surprise. Harrison's voice sounded as cheerful as it had 20 years ago, even though he was already 70. "What can I do for you?" "I need counseling, Harrison. It has to do with financial obligations to my son." "Of course. When would be a good time for you to meet?" We arranged to meet the next day at his office. Harrison was semi-officially retired but kept a small office in the law firm he'd once founded. The morning was overcast. I wore a strict suit, a habit from my working days. Serious decisions require the right frame of mind. I put all the financial documents related to the Michael house into a briefcase and headed for downtown Raytown. Harrison's office was in an old brick building on Maple Street. His secretary, Mrs. Pototz, had worked with him seemingly forever. She smiled welcomingly when she saw me. "Mrs. Hughes, it's been a long time since you've been here. Mr. Thatcher is expecting you." Harrison stood up from his desk as I entered his office. The years had added gray to his reddish hair, but his blue eyes were still piercing. "Evelyn, you look beautiful," he hugged me. "How are you doing?" "Not bad, Harrison, but there's a situation that needs to be resolved." We sat down in the leather chairs by his desk. I pulled out a file. "It's about Michael's house. You remember I helped with the down payment 5 years ago?" "Of course, I remember. We signed a contract with the bank. I've been making 2/3 of the mortgage payment every month ever since." I showed him the bank statements. It was a temporary solution until Michael got back on his feet, but, things have changed. I summarized what was going on in my son's house: the neglect of Olivia, the privileged position of Doreen's children, the unreasonable spending with reported financial difficulties. "So, I've decided to stop the funding," I concluded. "I want to know what the legal implications of that might be." Harrison listened carefully, looked over the documents, then leaned back in his chair. "Legally, you don't have to keep making payments. The contract with the bank lists you as the third party making the payments, but Michael is the primary borrower. If you stop making payments, he'll be fully responsible for repaying the loan. And if he can't pay, then the bank will start foreclosure proceedings, first warnings, late fees, then, if things don't change, auctioning the house to pay off the debt." I nodded. That was exactly the answer I'd expected. "There's something else," Harrison leaned forward. "While you were talking, I ran a background check on the address. Michael took out an additional loan against the house 8 months ago. A pretty hefty sum." I froze, digesting the information. A home equity loan? But he hadn't paid off the original mortgage yet. "Yes, but there was already equity in the house, thanks to your down payment and regular payments. Banks often give you a second loan against that equity. And what was that money used for? I felt anger rising inside. Harrison shrugged his shoulders. I can't tell you that, but judging by the amount, about $50,000, it wasn't roof repairs. I remembered Doreen's new car, the vacation to the coast, the expensive gadgets for the kids. Everything fell into place. And I didn't know anything about it? I shook my head. Even though I'd made the payments on the first mortgage? He didn't have to tell you, Harrison said. Legally, he owned the house. But I'm actually paying for a large part of it. I straightened. Well, that clears things up, Harrison. I need a legally sound way to stop financing the house. Harrison nodded. The easiest way is to notify the bank that you're stopping the extra payments on the Michael Hughes loan. I will prepare a letter to that effect for you. I also recommend that you change the standing order with your bank. What happens to Michael and his family? They will have a choice, either find a way to pay the full amount of the mortgage on their own, sell the house and pay off the debt, or wait for the bank to begin foreclosure proceedings. In the latter case, the house would be sold at auction, most likely below market value. The debt would be paid off, and the balance, if any, would be given to Michael. I thought about it. The situation was unpleasant, but I saw no other option. As long as my son was financially dependent on me, he had no incentive to change. Prepare a letter, Harrison. One more thing, about my will. We spent another hour in Harrison's office discussing the details. When I left, it was hard on my soul, but I felt relieved at the decision I had made. At the bank, I canceled the standing order to transfer money to Michael's mortgage account. Then I decided it was best not to put off talking to my son. I called his cell phone. Mom, is something wrong? He sounded surprised. I rarely called him during work hours. We need to talk, Michael. It's important. Can you come by my place after work? It's complicated today. Doreen and I have plans tonight. Cancel them. My tone left no room for objection. I'll see you at 6. There was a pause. Okay, he finally answered. But what's going on? I'll see you around, Michael. I spent the rest of the afternoon preparing for the conversation. I brewed strong tea and took out cookies, the usual ritual for serious conversations in our family. At 5:50, I heard Michael's car pull up. My son entered with a weary expression. I pointed to the chair across from me. Sit down. Tea? What's going on, Mom? He ignored the offer. You sound like something terrible has happened. Not terrible, I poured myself a cup of tea, but it's serious. I've decided to stop financing your house. Michael froze, then grinned nervously. What do you mean, cut off the financing? Exactly what I said. I won't be making any more payments on your mortgage. From this month on, you're entirely responsible for your own payments. He stared at me as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. But why? What happened? What happened was that I opened my eyes, I sipped my tea. I saw the way you were treating Olivia. I saw you yelling at her, Ethan and Chloe bullying her, how Doreen makes a 6-year-old do chores while her kids have fun. Michael's face darkened. There you go again. I told you, we're just teaching her responsibility. No, Michael, you're making her a servant, and you're using my money to spoil the other kids. That is not true, he raised his voice. We treat all the kids the same. We do? I raised an eyebrow. Then explain to me why Ethan has a new smartphone and a bike, Chloe has a pool membership and fancy clothes, and Olivia has worn-out t-shirts that are too small for her. Why do they go to the mall, and she stays home and does her homework? Why do they go on vacations with you, and they leave her with her grandmother? Michael looked away. You don't understand. Everyone has different needs. Ethan needs a phone to keep in touch with friends, Chloe needs swimming lessons for her health. And Olivia, she's a homebody kid. She's a homebody because you don't give her any other choice. I shook my head. But it's more than that. I found out about the second loan you took out against the house. Michael flinched, his eyes widening. Where did you? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you took out a large sum of money without saying a word to me, while I'm paying most of your first mortgage. And from what I can see, Doreen's new car, vacations, electronics, that money didn't go to something necessary. We had debts, Michael began uncertainly. Credit cards, the kids' tuition bills. Ethan and Chloe, I clarified. Not Olivia. She goes to a regular public school. Michael jumped up from his seat. Are you following us? Counting our money? No, I looked at him calmly. I'm just watching. And what I see, I don't like. You're using my money to live beyond your means, and you're mistreating my granddaughter. It's not fair, he exclaimed. You can't just refuse help like that. I can. I put the cup on the table, and I already have. I canceled the standing order at the bank and sent a notice to the credit organization. From the 1st of next month, the payments are entirely on you. Michael turned pale. You won't do it. I already did. But we can't afford the full amount. There was panic in his voice. We don't have enough money. Then you'll have to rethink your spending, I shrugged. Buy less, spend less on entertainment. The way normal people live on a budget. Michael ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he always made when he was nervous. Mom, you can't do this to us. We could lose the house. Yes, that's a possibility, I agreed. If you don't find a way to pay the mortgage on your own. And you don't care that your grandkids are going to end up on the street? I care that one of my grandchildren is being humiliated in her own home. I said firmly. And I don't believe you'll end up on the street. At the very least, you can sell the house and buy something more affordable, or rent an apartment. Michael stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I don't recognize you, Mom. You've never been so cruel. It's not cruelty, Michael. It's justice. I've turned a blind eye to what's been happening for too long. It's time we all face the truth. He slumped back in his chair, his shoulders slumped. What do you want? He asked quietly. For me to apologize? Okay, I was too hard on Olivia. I'll make it up to you. This isn't about apologizing, I shook my head. It's about you letting your new family push your own daughter away. You're using my money to provide privileges for your wife's children while Olivia lives like Cinderella. That's an exaggeration. No, Michael, I saw it with my own eyes. And the decision's already been made. My son suddenly changed tactics, his face softened, and there was a pleading look in his eyes, an expression I remembered from his childhood, when he wanted a new toy or to stay out late with friends. Mom, let's be reasonable. Maybe we could reach a compromise. I promise to pay more attention to Olivia, make sure Ethan and Chloe treat her better. Doreen will do her best too. We'll fix this. I'm sure you will, I nodded. Especially now that your financial well-being depends on it. But my decision still stands. Michael clenched his fists. You can't do this to us. After everything we've been through. After my father died, I've been there for you. You visited me once a month, Michael, I said softly. That hardly qualifies as being there for me. And I've always handled my finances on my own, you know that. He stood up, pacing the room nervously. It's Prudence, isn't it? Did she turn you against me during your visit? Always being Daddy's little girl, always trying to make me look bad. Your sister had nothing to do with it, I shook my head. It's my decision, based on what I saw with my own eyes. Michael stopped abruptly. Okay, I understand your position. But I still don't believe you'll go all the way, Mom. You're not that kind of man. You wouldn't leave your family in the lurch. I saw a strange confidence in his eyes. He really didn't believe that I was capable of such a decisive step. In his mind, I was still the soft, compliant mother who would eventually give in and continue to help, no matter what happened. Don't test me, Michael, I said quietly. I love you. You're my son. But I won't support what's going on in your house anymore. He grinned, and in that grin, I saw condescension. Okay, Mom, you made your point. I heard it. Let's revisit this conversation in a week, when everyone has calmed down. He was so sure that this was just an emotional outburst on my part, a temporary threat that would not be realized. That self-assurance strengthened my resolve. Nothing will change in a week, Michael. The standing order has been cancelled. The notice has been sent to the bank. You'll be receiving full mortgage bills from the first of the month. Whatever you say, he was still smiling, though there was a flicker of worry in his eyes. I have to go. Doreen is waiting. He headed for the door, but turned around on the threshold. I know you won't do it, Mom. You always said family was the most important thing. That's why I'm doing this, I replied. For Olivia, who is my family too. When the door closed behind Michael, I sat still for a long time. Something told me that this was just the beginning of a long, hard journey. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was doing the right thing, even if it hurt. Sometimes you have to take a step back to see the big picture. And now that I had seen it, there was no turning back. 2 months passed in a strange silence. Michael didn't call, didn't visit. I didn't see Olivia either, which bothered me the most. I tried to visit a few times, but Doreen always found excuses to keep me out of the house. Olivia was sick, or they were away, or she had a tutoring session. I'd call my granddaughter's home phone during the day, when her parents were at work, but Ethan or Chloe usually picked up and said Olivia was busy. I did manage to talk to her once, just for a minute, before Chloe took the phone away. Olivia whispered, "Grandma, they won't let me see you." The end of July was particularly hot. I was working in the garden in the early morning, while the sun was still merciful, when I noticed a police car driving slowly down the street. It stopped in front of Michael's house, and 2 men got out, with files in their hands. Not cops. Bailiffs. I froze, pruning shears in hand. Eviction proceedings had begun. So soon. Usually, banks give more time before resorting to such extreme measures. 20 minutes later, the bailiffs left, attaching some kind of document to the door. Another hour later, I saw Michael rush home, apparently called home from work. He tore the paper off the door, read it quickly, and crumpled it up in a rage. I decided to wait for him to contact me. The next day, the phone rang. "Mom?" Michael's voice sounded depressed. "We need to talk." "Of course," I answered calmly. "Come over whenever it's convenient." "I'll be there in an hour." He arrived even earlier. He looked gaunt, his eyes shadowed, his shirt wrinkled, nothing like the confident man who had assured me 2 months ago that I wouldn't go through with it. "The bank has started foreclosure proceedings," he said without preamble, sinking into my chair. "They're putting the house up for auction in 3 weeks." I nodded, pouring him tea. I'd assumed that would happen. "Have you missed any payments?" "4, he rubbed his face. I tried to negotiate a restructuring, but because of the second loan, they wouldn't budge. "I see. What do you plan to do?" Michael looked up at me tiredly. "What can we do? We don't have enough money to pay off the debt. We're going to have to move out." "Have you found another place to live?" Doreen's got her eye on an apartment on the North End. 2 bedrooms. "Small, but it's all we can afford right now," he said quietly. "Mom, I've come to ask for help. Not with the house, I realize that's no longer possible. But we need money for the first and last month's rent, for moving. Just a few thousand." I looked at my son carefully. He really looked depressed and sincere. "What about Olivia? How did she take the news of the move?" Michael looked away. "She's fine. Kids adapt faster than adults. But 2 bedrooms? Where's she going to sleep?" "In the room with Chloe, of course. They'll get along." I doubted it, given Chloe's attitude toward her half-sister. "I need to see Olivia," I said firmly. I hadn't given you money all this time because I wanted you to reconsider your attitude toward her. Had something changed? Michael sighed. We're trying, Mom, but it's not a good time. We're all stressed out about the move. That's why I want to see my granddaughter. She needs to know that I'm there for her in every situation. Okay, he agreed reluctantly. Come by tomorrow afternoon. We'll all be home, packing. The next day, I walked toward Michael's house with a heavy heart. Something told me it wasn't going to be easy. Doreen's car was parked in the driveway, and next to it was a minivan labeled trucking. The move had already begun. Doreen opened the door. Her face was tense, but she tried to smile. Evelyn, come in. We're just packing. The house was chaos, boxes, bags, disassembled furniture. Ethan and Chloe sat in the living room, staring at their gadgets, oblivious to what was going on around them. Where's Olivia? I asked, wasting no time with small talk. Upstairs, in her room, Doreen answered. Helping her pack. Such a diligent girl. I went up the stairs and found Olivia folding her few clothes neatly into a tattered suitcase. When she saw me, she rushed to me with a hug. Grandma. I missed you so much. Me too, sweetheart, I hugged her tightly, feeling her little heart pounding. How are you? I'm fine, she shrugged. We're moving. Dad says the new apartment will be cramped, but there's a park nearby. Are you excited about it? Olivia was quiet for a moment, then she said very quietly, I don't know. Chloe's mad about having to share a room with me. She said she'd throw my stuff out if I took up too much space. My heart squeezed. Nothing had changed. Still the same bullying, still the same neglect. What about your school? Will you be able to keep going to school there? No, her face got sad. Dad said I'm going to a new school. But Sophia, my best friend, won't be there. At that moment, Doreen came into the room with a cheerful smile. Olivia, honey, come downstairs. Daddy wants to talk to you about the new school. My granddaughter nodded obediently and headed for the door, giving me one last glance. When we were alone, Doreen's smile disappeared. Michael said you've come to offer help. Her tone became businesslike. Was that true? I came to see Olivia, I answered, and to assess the situation. As you can see, it's not a pleasant situation. Doreen looked around the room. We're losing the house because of your decision. Michael's decision to take out a loan he couldn't pay back, I corrected. And because of your shared decision to spend money on luxuries instead of necessities. Doreen pressed her lips together. That's in the past. Right now, we need help, and so does Olivia. She's the one I'm most worried about. I crossed my arms over my chest. How has she been living these past 2 months? Why didn't you let me see her? We were upset by your decision, Doreen shrugged. It's a natural reaction. Using a child as a tool for revenge isn't a natural reaction. I objected. It's manipulation. Doreen suddenly changed tactics, her face softened, a pleading tone in her voice. Evelyn, let's be honest. We all make mistakes. Maybe we haven't always been fair to Olivia, but this is really hard for us right now. And Olivia is suffering the most, new school, cramped apartment, sharing a room with Chloe, who admittedly isn't always kind to her. I listened intently, trying to figure out where she was going with this. What do you suggest? Maybe. Doreen paused, as if mulling over an idea, though I was sure it had all been thought out in advance. Maybe Olivia could stay with you for a while, until we get back on our feet? It would be better for everyone. She'd have her own room, a familiar school, and it would be easier for us to fit into the small apartment. So that was it. They'd decided to use Olivia as bait to get money from me. How long will it take, until we get back on our feet? I asked. Well. Doreen made a vague gesture with her hand, until we find a bigger place to live. Maybe a few months. And you expect me to support Olivia all that time? Pay her expenses, her school fees, her clothes? That would be very helpful, Doreen smiled. Well, in any way we can, of course. I thought about it. It was tempting to take Olivia in, to give her a normal life, but I didn't trust Doreen and Michael's motives. I needed to discuss this with my son. I went downstairs and found Michael in the study, sorting through papers. Doreen suggested that Olivia stay with me, I said without preamble. Michael nodded, not looking surprised. Yes, we discussed that possibility. It makes sense in our situation. What about the legal side? Are you willing to set up a temporary guardianship? He frowned. Guardianship? Why so formal? It's just a temporary solution. If Olivia is going to live with me, I need to have the right to make decisions about her education, her health, her safety, I explained. Without legal guardianship, that's impossible. Michael was silent for a moment, thinking about the situation. Okay, if it makes you feel better. But it has to be temporary custody, and we retain the right to see our daughter at any time. Of course, we do. I would never interfere with your communication, I assured him. There is one more question. If Olivia lives with me, I will provide for her fully. But I will not give money to you. Michael's face darkened. So you're taking our daughter, but you refuse to help us with housing? I'm not taking her, Michael. I'm offering her stability while you work out your problems. That's what Doreen suggested, and I agree. But I'm not funding your lifestyle. You know we don't even have the money for a security deposit on the apartment. Sell Doreen's car, I suggested. Or Ethan's electronics, or the jewelry you bought your wife. You've got enough valuable stuff to raise the money you need. Michael pounded his fist on the table. You're doing this on purpose. Punishing us. No, son, I just stopped indulging in your bad habits, I sighed. Think about the offer. Olivia will be better off with me until you get your life together. She won't have to change her school, her friends, her surroundings. And you'll have a chance to focus on solving your financial problems. He was silent for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but only temporarily. And we'll visit her every weekend. A week later, all the paperwork was in place. Harrison helped with the legal side, and I got temporary custody of Olivia for 1 year, renewable. Michael signed the papers reluctantly, but he didn't have much choice. The new apartment was truly tiny, with 2 small bedrooms. Olivia would have had to sleep on a cot in the corner of Chloe's room. My granddaughter's move-in with me went surprisingly smoothly. She had so little stuff that everything fit into 1 suitcase and a backpack. I prepared the room that used to be Prudence's for her, bright, spacious, overlooking the garden. I bought a new bed, a desk, bookshelves. When Olivia saw her new room, her eyes widened in surprise. This is all for me, she asked incredulously. It's all yours, sweetheart, I put my arm around her shoulders. You can decorate it however you want. The first days were not easy. Olivia often woke up at night crying, calling for Daddy. I sat with her, cuddled her, told her stories. Gradually, she calmed down, got used to it. She started smiling more, talking louder, laughing. Michael and Doreen visited her that first weekend, as promised. They brought a new doll, obviously expensive, in a dressy dress. Olivia thanked them politely, but I could tell she wasn't particularly happy about the gift. Later, she confessed to me that she never liked dolls, she preferred books and puzzles. They don't even know what you like, I thought bitterly. The visit went on strained. Ethan and Chloe stayed home, doing homework, as Doreen explained. Michael was silent, answering his daughter's questions about the new apartment with one-word answers. Doreen tried to give the appearance of normal family interaction, but it looked fake. 3 weeks after Olivia moved in, I decided to make my will. A visit to the notary was scheduled for Tuesday morning. Harrison was there too. He helped me draw up the documents so that everything was legally flawless. Now, Mrs. Hughes, the notary, an older man with a neat beard, looked at me carefully. Do you wish to change your will, leaving all of your property to your granddaughter, Olivia Hughes? Yes, I confirmed. But on the condition that the estate be held in a trust until she comes of age. Harrison Thatcher will be the trustee of the trust. I see. What about your children, Michael and Prudence Hughes? Prudence will receive some of my jewelry collection that belonged to my mother, I explained. They have sentimental value to her. Michael will get his father's watch and cufflinks. Everything else, the house, the bank accounts, the investments, will go into a trust for Olivia. The notary nodded, making notes. And you're sure of your decision? It could be challenged in court by your son. Let him try, I smiled. I have every reason to distribute the inheritance this way, and Harrison will help me prove it if necessary. The will was signed, witnessed, and officially registered. Harrison kept a copy in his office, and I kept another in my possession. I was relieved. Olivia's future was now secure, regardless of what happened to me. I hadn't intended to inform Michael of the change of will, but fate had decreed otherwise. That same afternoon, he stopped by my house unexpectedly, ostensibly to pick up some of Olivia's papers he'd forgotten to hand over. My granddaughter was at school, so it was just the two of us. I offered him tea, and we sat in the kitchen, talking about ordinary things, the weather, health, Raytown news. Michael looked tense, but he was polite. My briefcase with the documents from the notary was on the table. I hadn't had time to put it away since I'd returned. What's this? Michael nodded at the folder labeled Will. My personal papers. I tried to put the briefcase away, but my son was quicker. You changed the will. He pulled out the folder, opened it. Today, Michael. It's none of your business. I held out my hand. Give it back, please. But he was already looking at the document, his face changing with each line he read. What does that mean? He looked up at me with darkened eyes. You're leaving everything to Olivia, and me just my father's watch. I'm entitled to my property, I replied calmly. And I decided that Olivia needed protection and support the most. Michael threw the folder on the table. You're disinheriting me because of some petty grudge. After everything I've done for you. What exactly did you do, Michael? I looked him straight in the eye. Take advantage of my money for years? Let your wife and her kids abuse my granddaughter? Taking out loans I knew nothing about? I am your son, he exclaimed, jumping up from his chair. I am your flesh and blood, and you treat me like a stranger. You made that choice, Michael, I shook my head. When you decided that your new family was more important than your own daughter, when you let me turn Olivia into a servant, when you spent my money on luxuries instead of giving your child a normal life. I won't let you do that, he pounded his fist on the table. I'll contest the will. On what grounds? I raised an eyebrow. On the grounds that I decided to take care of my granddaughter instead of a 42-year-old man who can't manage his own finances. Michael turned black. You've always loved Prudence more. Always put her above me. And now you found a new favorite, Olivia. That's not true, Michael, I shook my head. I loved you both equally, and I still do. But love doesn't mean indulging in selfishness and irresponsibility. I don't want to hear any more of your moralizing. He grabbed his jacket. You betrayed me, Mom. First you took my house, then you took my daughter, now you're disinheriting me. What's next? Then you'll grow up and start taking responsibility for your actions, I said calmly. And maybe you'll remember that you have a daughter who needs her father. I have 3 children, he shouted. Not just Olivia. But only one is your own flesh and blood, I reminded him. And she's the one you abandoned. Michael gave me one last angry look and stormed out of the kitchen. The front door slammed, and his car engine roared to life. I remained seated at the table, staring at the scattered papers. This was the end. I knew it. Michael wouldn't forgive me for this blow to his ego. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd done the right thing. Olivia deserved a better life, and I was determined to give her that life, no matter what her father thought of it. It's been a year now since I've had the sound of children's laughter in my house. Sometimes, when I wake up in the morning, I don't immediately remember that I'm no longer alone, and the sounds in the kitchen are not George making his signature omelette, but Olivia trying to surprise me with a cup of tea and toast with jam. The year has flown by. Temporary custody has long since turned into permanent custody. Michael didn't mind when it came time to renew the papers. He and Doreen moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of Raytown, in a neighborhood the locals delicately called developing. Twice a month, they visited Olivia, both of them at first, then increasingly Michael alone. Their marriage was cracking at the seams, it was obvious even in their brief encounters. Doreen blamed her husband for the loss of their home and status, he blamed her for being wasteful. Ethan, now 15, was constantly getting into trouble at his new school. Chloe withdrew, stopped swimming. I didn't gloat. I felt sorry for them, but I realized that this whole situation was a logical consequence of their own decisions and actions. What really pleased me was the change in Olivia. At first, she was wary, quiet, afraid to ask for anything, often waking up screaming at night. I had to sit by her bedside for long periods of time, reassuring her that no one would yell at her if she spilled juice or didn't have time to clean her room. Gradually, her shell began to crack. One morning, I heard her humming while watering the flowers on the windowsill. Another time, I caught her dancing in front of the mirror with a hairbrush instead of a microphone. Little things, but they spoke volumes. At school, Olivia had always been an able student, but now her grades were even better. The teacher, Mrs. Parkinson, noted at the parent-teacher conference that the girl had become more active in discussions, raising her hand, coming to the board. It's like she's spread her wings, the teacher said, and I couldn't agree more. I decided to support my granddaughter's development and offered her a choice of additional activities. Anything, as long as she liked it. Can you really do anything? She asked incredulously. Of course, sweetie. Sports, art, science. What are you interested in? Olivia thought, fiddling with the crescent moon pendant she'd always worn since I'd given it to her. I'd like to learn to play the piano, she said quietly. We were shown a concerto at school, and it was so beautiful. I enrolled her in the music school of Mrs. Phelps, an old woman with a tuft of gray hair and kind eyes. After a month of lessons, she called me. Mrs. Hughes, your granddaughter has an amazing ear, she said excitedly. It's a natural talent. She picks up everything on the fly and is already playing pieces that my other students take 6 months to master. I wasn't surprised. Olivia had always loved music, humming tunes she'd heard on the radio, drumming rhythm with her fingers on the table. But in Michael and Doreen's house, there was no room to develop that talent. I bought a used piano from neighbors who were moving to Florida. Olivia loved it, sitting at the instrument for hours, learning scales and simple pieces. Her little fingers flew across the keys with amazing dexterity. After 6 months of lessons, the first report concert took place. I sat in the hall of the music school, watching my granddaughter in a modest blue dress, which we had chosen together, go on stage. She bowed, sat at the piano, and the music flowed. A simple piece by Schumann, but in her performance, it sounded especially moving. I had invited Michael to the concert, but he didn't come. He called at the last moment, citing a work emergency. I saw Olivia looking through the audience before the show, looking for her father, and her eyes went blank when she didn't find him. But on stage, she pulled herself together and played flawlessly. Then, as we walked home, she held my hand tightly and talked about music, about what piece she wanted to learn next. Not a word about her father. Michael's visits became less frequent, once a month, then once every 2 months. He always brought gifts, expensive but impersonal dolls that Olivia didn't play with, dresses too fancy for everyday life. One day, he brought a huge teddy bear that took up half her room. Thank you, Daddy, she said politely, but I could see she was uncomfortable. Michael didn't know his daughter, her tastes, her hobbies, her dreams. He bought gifts that he thought a 7-year-old girl should like, not realizing that Olivia was no ordinary child. She preferred books about dinosaurs to Barbie dolls, encyclopedias to fashion magazines, classical music to cartoons. On her 8th birthday, we threw a little party. We invited a few girls from the class, including Sophia, her best friend. We ordered a piano-shaped cake and decorated the house with balloons. Olivia shone with happiness as she accepted congratulations and gifts. Michael arrived with Doreen, the first time they'd been together in a long time. They seemed strangely polite to each other, saying little. They gave Olivia the latest model tablet, too expensive for their current situation. I noticed Doreen looking around the house, taking note of every detail, every change I'd made over the past year. Her gaze was evaluative, as if she was estimating the value of everything she saw. After the party, when the children had dispersed and Olivia had gone upstairs to sort through the presents, Michael asked to speak to me alone. We went out into the garden and sat down on a bench under an old apple tree. "Mom, I want to apologize," he began, looking away, "for everything that happened, for the way I behaved." I looked at my son carefully. He'd changed a lot in the past year, graying at the temples, new wrinkles around his eyes, and a faded look in his eyes. "I'm glad to hear that, Michael," I said calmly. "Olivia needs a father who recognizes his mistakes and wants to fix them." "Yes, of course," he nodded. "But I'm not just talking about Olivia. I want to rebuild our relationship, Mom. We're a family, no matter what." "Has something changed in your life?" I asked bluntly. Michael paused, then sighed. "Doreen and I are splitting up. She's taking the kids and moving in with her sister in Seattle." "I'm sorry," I said sincerely, "but I can't say I'm surprised." "Yeah," he grinned bitterly. "I guess you always saw things I didn't. Doreen, she's not who I thought she was." I didn't say anything. There was no point in stating the obvious, that Doreen had always been interested only in money and status, that she'd used him to support herself and her children. "It's going to be hard for me on my own," Michael continued. "Financially, I mean. The apartment is in my name, the furniture is mine, but my paycheck is barely enough to pay the bills. That's it." I expected this conversation to turn to money sooner or later. "What do you suggest?" I asked neutrally. "Maybe, I could come home to you?" He looked at me hopefully. "Not forever, of course. Just until I'm back on my feet. And Olivia would be happy to see me every day." I thought about it. Part of me wanted to help my son, after all, despite everything, he was my child. But another part of me remembered everything that had happened in the last few years. "No, Michael," I shook my head. "It wouldn't be a good idea. Olivia is just starting to feel safe, to gain confidence. Your constant presence could upset that delicate balance." "But I'm her father," he said indignantly. "I have rights." "Of course, you do. And I've never interfered with your communication with your daughter," I reminded him. "But living with us is different. You're not ready for that kind of responsibility. You still don't trust me," he pressed his lips together. "You're still punishing me for past mistakes." "I'm not punishing you, Michael. I'm protecting Olivia. And yes, I'm not sure you've changed enough to put her interests ahead of your own." My son's face contorted with anger. "You're never going to give me a chance, are you? You'll keep my daughter away from me until she completely forgets who her real family is." "Olivia knows exactly who her family is," I replied calmly. "And you can always be a part of her life, come visit, spend time together, take her away on weekends. But living here? No." Michael stood up, clenching and unclenching his fists. "You're going to regret this, Mom. I can still contest custody." "On what grounds?" I got up too. "You can't provide a child with stability. You have no permanent home. Your marriage is broken. Your finances are precarious. Any court would leave Olivia with me." He knew I was right, and it made him even angrier. "We'll talk more about this," he said, and headed for the house. After that conversation, Michael didn't show up for almost 3 months, didn't call, didn't write. Olivia would ask about him, and I'd tell her that Daddy was very busy at work, but he'd be sure to visit her when he could. She nodded with an understanding that broke my heart. An 8-year-old should not take the absence of a parent in her life so calmly. One evening, as we sat in the living room, me with my knitting, Olivia at the piano, she suddenly interrupted her playing and turned to me. "Grandma, does Daddy love me?" I put down my needles, came up to her, and put my arm around her shoulders. "Of course, he does, sweetheart. It's just, he doesn't always know how to show it." Olivia ran her finger over the key thoughtfully. "When I lived with them, I often thought they'd be better off without me. That I was superfluous." "You were never superfluous," I hugged her tighter. "It's just that some adults don't realize what a treasure they've been given." She smiled, snuggling against me. "I'm glad I live with you, Grandma. You never make me feel superfluous." "I never will," I kissed the top of her head. "You're the best thing that's happened to me in years." In September, I got a letter from Michael, a postcard from Portland. He wrote that he'd found a new job at an insurance company, moved to another state, was starting his life over. He promised to call Olivia every week and come over for Christmas. For the first 2 weeks, he did call. Then the calls got shorter. By Christmas, he sent a package with gifts and apologies. He couldn't come, too much work. Olivia took the news stoically, as if she'd expected no different. We spent the holidays alone, except for Prudence's visit with her husband and children. We decorated the house, baked gingerbread, went to the Christmas show at school. It was quiet, cozy, peaceful. In the new year, I decided we both needed a change of scenery. For too long, life had revolved around the problems created by Michael and Doreen. It was time to move on. "How would you feel about taking a trip this summer?" I asked Olivia over breakfast. Her eyes widened. "A real trip? Where to?" "Anywhere you want to go." I smiled. "We could go to Washington, D.C. and see the museums, or New York City. There's a great zoo and a natural history museum with real dinosaur skeletons. Or even..." I paused. "Europe? Europe?" Olivia jumped up in her chair. "Really? We could see the Eiffel Tower and the Colosseum and castles." "Anything you want," I laughed, seeing her excitement. "Pick a country, and we'll make an itinerary." That same day, we went to the bookstore and bought a world atlas, guidebooks to Europe, and a notebook to plan the trip. Olivia enthusiastically immersed herself in learning about the countries and places of interest, telling me something new every night about the places she wanted to visit. Looking at her so lively and happy, I thought about how long I had put off my own travel dreams. First for my career, then for my family, then because of George's illness. Even after his death, I'd continued to live a routine, giving my money and time to Michael and his family. But now, I finally had the courage to change everything. To put Olivia's well-being above the supposed comfort of adults, to stop funding unhealthy relationships, to take responsibility for the future of a child who trusted me. I guess that's what true love is, not indulging weaknesses, but standing firm for what's right. George would approve of my decisions. I was sure of it. One evening, when Olivia was already asleep, I went out into the garden and looked at the stars. The spring air was cool but fresh, full of the promise of new life. "We made it, George," I whispered, as if he could hear. "Our granddaughter is safe. She's happy." And in the rustling leaves of the old apple tree, I heard his voice. "I knew you'd make the right choice, Evelyn." I smiled, breathing in the scent of the first flowers. Summer was ahead, traveling, new discoveries for Olivia and for me. Life went on, and for the first time in years, I looked to the future with joyful anticipation rather than anxiety and a sense of obligation. Cinderella had found her home, and in this fairy tale, there was no room for an evil stepmother and an indifferent father, only love, music, and the promise of adventure waiting beyond the horizon.